He's angry about mortgages. It's Angry Mortgage. He's swearing. He's cursing loud. He's old. He's opinionated. And he's been doing this so damn long. This program is about mortgages, and this is mortgage advice, but the advice may not apply to your situation. Contact licensed mortgage professionals for specific recommendations before you make decisions about mortgages. You may not agree with Ron, but if you don't, he thinks you're wrong. Oh, and did we say there is a lot of swearing?
Well, we got John Pasalis back. John is the broker of record Realosophy. I got it perfectly.
You got it.
A independent real estate agency, real estate brokerage. You're right, sort of downtown. Well, not downtown, but you're
Leslieville.
Right. You're Leslieville, right? And John has terrific insights. Does legitimate, real research. You're like a doctor. Are you a doctor? You are a doctor. Yeah, you're a doctor of business. What's the
business?
Degree?
Yeah, it's
doctor
of business.
Of business. So this is the opposite of me. Not a bullshitter. All the truth, all the time. Okay, this is about like real research, and that's why we love to have John on. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Ron.
All right, one of the things that you and I have been thinking about independently and together is why the fuck are all these brokerages stealing from their trust accounts? Like, what's going on here? So just to quickly run the story down, we've had a series of real estate brokerages who have been taking money out of their trust account. Like, just to oversimplify this, you just can never take any money out of your trust account for anything except dealing with the final transaction of closing, right?
Exactly,
like
correct.
Paying commissions, paying the money to the lawyers. It's just a matter of money goes to lawyers, right? Or to agents. That's all it is. Okay.
100%.
You can't touch the account for any other reason. You run a real estate brokerage. You cannot.
Yeah.
And that's straightforward, right? Like there's no you take a buck out, you're breaking the law.
Correct.
Okay. So why do you think, and we've seen a ton of it, some big, $10 million big. Like I count $10 million as real money, right? And some small, but all over the map. And we're hearing about it far more. So is it true that it's just happening more, or we didn't hear about it before? What do you think?
I think what's happening is, I think it's been happening for several years, but we didn't hear about it. Okay. I don't think it was an issue before 2022. The market's booming, prices are surging, tons of home sales, everyone's making money. But we're in the third year in a row in the GTA where sales are pretty much like at a 20-year low. And real estate brokerage businesses, their revenue's a bigger function of sales transactions rather than prices, right? That's just the way the business model is. So sales plummet, their revenue takes a bigger hit.
Unit sales plummet.
Unit sales, the number of transactions actually happening, right? So, what happens with these brokerages are tight margin businesses. The people who make the money in real estate are actually the real estate agents. The brokerages don't make a ton of money, very thin margins. They have a lot of fixed expenses, real estate offices, staff. So, when the market has plummeted, they just can't make ends meet. So they start dipping into the trust account.
Sure, but every single broker of record understands you can't take a penny out. Yeah. You can't take money out on a Tuesday, put it back on a Thursday. You just can't do it.
You can't.
Period.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
But they're drowning, right? So they're just trying to make ends meet. Obviously they should not be doing that, but they're thinking, okay, if I just borrow a little bit now, maybe things will be better in the spring market,
Yeah. Things are going to be better soon.
Exactly.
Okay. So, all right. So look, and still to this day, we talked about it before. I don't think there's that much auditing going on.
No, there isn't. I've had my brokerage for, 16 years, 17 years. I've been audited twice, which is insane. So this is why these companies, if you think about iPro, like 10 million, you do not take that much money overnight.
No.
It's a slow build. You start with $500,000 and then $1 million and then $2 million and then $4 million. And the reason that it's such a big amount is because they weren't audited for years, right? And they were probably bleeding cash for 3 years since the market collapsed, and that we're catching the tail end of it now.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, that money, they could have been dipping into that trust account at iPro 2.5, 3 years ago.
Exactly. No one knows.
Kept on going.
Exactly.
So if they would intensify the number of audits, if they would, it would do two things. A, you'd catch more people, obviously, which is good. It's good to catch people, okay? But the other aspect of that is less likely to dip in.
100%, yeah.
Because if you know an audit could happen any minute, you think, hey, I don't want to lose my license.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, because now people think they can dip in and not get caught, right? Because there's some people who are outright taking the money because there's such a big balance. Some people are just, on the 2nd of every month, they take out $1 million to pay down their debt so they don't have to pay interest on it. And then on the 29th of the month, they put it back. So their reconciliation looks good. It's like no one notices there. And they keep doing that. So you would catch that if you're auditing more frequently.
Really important to understand that, folks. Like, some people who are listening and watching might say, well, I guess if they put it back, it's not so bad.
No, you can't do that.
You can't do that. You cannot do that, okay?
No.
When any account has the word trust in front of it, there are ultra-specific rules you can never violate.
Yeah,
that's it.
Correct.
Or it wouldn't say trust.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, you have to do the right thing. You can't take the money, because nobody in the audience understand this, but it's called check kiting. Like, you used to be able to actively do this with the Canadian banking system. Much harder now. Yeah. But because there's so few checks. But you would deposit a check in a bank account. There was no money to cover it. It's your account. Okay. So you'd cash a check on your own account. It takes 2 or 3 days for it to clear if you work the weekends properly. And then you could roll some money back into it, and you could just keep doing it every 3 days. And yeah, that's something you could do. I'm not trying to teach everybody how to steal, but I mean, it is. And ultimately, you will probably get caught sooner or later. I mean, and that's a big fucking problem for everybody involved.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the issue is, again, people are not, what's happening now is like people just aren't proactive, And I think, we talked about this earlier, this idea that we're seeing so many of these failures because it's hard to look at your business and say, I'm bleeding cash. I can't afford this. I got to shut an office here because we can't pay rent. What are the agents going to think if we do that? They're going to think our business is going broke. Your business is going to broke if you keep the office. And you're right. If you have more audits, it keeps people more honest, and you cannot just kick the can down the road, which is what a lot of these companies are doing.
Well, tell your own story, because you have a really fascinating way you looked at it way early.
Yeah. So, I mean, when the market turned in 2022-ish,
mid-2022.
Yeah, mid-2022. I was like, this is terrible. Like, this is not gonna recover anytime soon.
So why did you say that? What made you think that?
I don't know. I think it was just my instinct that the market was going to be sluggish. Like, revenue was plummeting, sales were plummeting, revenue was going down. And I'm a very defensive person. Like, I don't wait to the last minute. I like getting ahead of it. And maybe I was going to be wrong, but my instinct was like, this is not going to go well. So I overreacted if the market did turn, but in the end I wasn't. So I basically sat down and said, I'm looking at everything in my company, like every expense, every $20 subscription, every $50, and I'm shaving whatever I can shave to the bone to just get my costs down. And again, it's not that I was vulnerable, because I can float my business on myself, but it's just prudent. Like, these moments come where it's like, revenue's down. I don't want to be spending $2,000 a month on useless subscriptions I don't need. I'm going to cut it down. So I did all of that stuff very early. And then, 12 months later, I have a friend who also has a small brokerage, kind of like myself, calls me up and he says, oh my God, what's going on? my revenue is plummeting. My costs are surging. How are you making ends meet? What are you doing? And in my head, I'm like, buddy, I was worrying about this a year ago. Like, I'm not stressed out now. Like, yeah, it's not as great as it was, but it's hard for people to be proactive.
Because we are going to have a recurring theme here that, hey, just wait till spring.
Exactly.
Wait for the spring market. It's all going to come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, it's funny because I think, and we talked about this before, I think these businesses are a lot like the homeowner or investor who's kind of drowning in debt. You know what I mean? They don't try to, fix things. They just borrow a little more, hoping things get better in 6 or 12 or 18 months, right? And that does not solve the problem. They just accumulate more debt until they just can't pay it anymore. And I think that's, for the most part, a natural human tendency for most people. And I think that's flowing through to businesses as well.
Yeah, there's always a huge sunk cost belief.
Yeah.
Okay, that, you know, I've got this much in, I just got to ride it out. You know, it's funny. It's really a fantastic point, because when you're a professional trader, like when you're on Wall Street or when you're on Bay Street and you're sitting in front of those terminals and trading day to day, one of the most critical axioms in the trading world is your first loss is your best loss. Like, if you think this is going backwards, sell it now. Okay, the chances that it will recover and rebound and exceed where the position was are enormously less than it just gets worse.
That's true.
So if you sell at the exact moment that you have a bad feeling about it, because let's face it, in the stock trading world, you can just buy it again relatively easily. You know, unfortunately, real estate is a real pain in the ass to buy and sell. It's got a lot of friction.
Yeah.
But it's always stuck with me. Like, your first loss is your best loss. If you just want to keep kicking the can down the road, as you said, it may have a bad outcome.
It's true. And I think the difference is in finance. It's like when you're in that space, you learn to sort of take the emotion out of it, which I think is the hardest part. Right? It's, for people, it's emotional. Obviously, if it's your principal residence, it's extremely hard to say, I can't afford this.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
And for investors particularly, I mean, if you're going to run negative cash flow, you are running negative cash flow, and you've got some belief that something's going to change. In the spring, it'll change. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have that belief and it doesn't change, you've run another 5 or 6 or 7 months of more and greater negative cash flow.
Yeah,
okay?
and especially in this market, I mean, the thing that's been killing people is waiting till the spring for 3 years in a row has resulted in much lower prices.
Three springs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and we met people like a year ago. It's like, oh, I'm going to wait. The market's going to rebound. I'm like, I don't know if it's rebounding this year. You know, and this year, if they're selling for 7, 8, 9, 10% less than last year because the market's a lot softer.
Okay, that's a great point. And yeah, look, a certain number of the people who listen to this podcast are in the mortgage business, in the real estate business. And for those people, this is a very meaningful discussion, okay? So the mortgage business is in a good space right now. The mortgage business had a great 2025. Don't get me wrong. There's always shitty salespeople, right? They don't do well anytime. But if you're honest, if you're a competent, effective salesperson in the mortgage business, that's a great 2025. It was 23 and 24 were horrible, okay? 2025, much better. Guess what? Renewals, jillions of renewals. And now in 26, we'll have the most renewals in the history of Canada. So it's going to be good. But it's not our brilliance. It's not my brilliance. It's not anybody's brilliance. It's just the market. There's more people saying, hey, my renewal's up. What should I do? And even if you don't do the renewal, there's just more people to talk to.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
But the warning I put out there is, in about May of 2027, you are fucking in the mortgage business, okay? It's going to go from the most renewals to the fewest renewals.
Interesting.
Right then and there. In May, June 2027, it's going to fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
Okay. I try to tell everybody, store up your nuts. Like, be a good squirrel.
But you're right. I mean, you're thinking 12 months ahead. I think the average person, struggles with that. And I think especially when you're running a business, I mean, I take it seriously. Like, people depend on you. They depend on me to worry about this stuff. Like, we have the fear because we don't want to be 12 months from now struggling to make ends meet. And you have to be a little bit worried about where the market's going.
Yeah, and you have to be a realist, and you can't believe that every good outcome was your own genius.
Exactly.
Okay? That's really important. Don't think when the market's running super hot. But I'm getting my share because I'm really good. No, exactly. I think you're just getting your share, actually.
But I mean, how many people were buying pre-con condos, making $100 or $200 a year, and they thought it was just their own genius? Like, anyone could have bought it. It's all, this booming market fueled by this population boom, fueled by low rates. There's no genius. It was just all luck.
It was a confluence of events.
It was 100%. Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about the market. So you made a great point, and you run a great video series, Move Smartly. Okay,
Thank you. Yeah.
and you talk about the realities of the real estate market today, and you made a point that there are some houses are actually sort of selling on multiple bids, like everything's offered under market. Like that's a universal truth today. Yeah. Every single place is offered under market. Yeah, because I guess what happened over 2 years of putting the list price at what the seller actually wanted to get, after 2 years of dismal failure doing that, everybody woke up and said, well, let's really mark the listing down and not accept any of those offers if it goes into this. So that's the new thing. But you have suggested that there are some houses that attract real interest and get real prices. So let's talk about where they are.
So, and I did this video because we have our own clients looking downtown.
Sure.
And they're looking in like areas that I live in, Leslieville, Riverdale, downtown, Bloor West Village. And they go to look at home, and homes are selling with bully offers. And like for people who don't understand what a bully is, it's insane that still talk about that now. It's like
it's crazy,
a home that has an offer date set.
Yeah.
And rather than waiting till the offer date, someone shows up 2 days after it's on the market, offers a ton of cash, not like 5 years ago, but pays over asking to try to get the home. And the seller accepts it. And on offer nights, homes are getting 5, 6, 7, 8 bids. And yes, it's because they're priced low, but the pricing low only works in areas that are competitive. Price a dog crate condo $100,000 or $200,000 below market value, no one's going to care. There's not going to be 10 bidders.
They just don't want it.
There's no 10 bidders on that property. You know what I mean?
No.
So these are niche areas, like downtown for the most part, from like the beaches to Bloor West Village. These areas are usually busy. I find what's happening this year seemed odds to me because they were busier than the rest of the market last year. Mm-hmm. But the rest of the market was busier last year. Okay. And what struck me as odd is the rest of the market is slower this year, but these areas are more competitive than last year.
So let's break that down because you do make great points about it. We got to realize that these are exclusively areas where people who live there or wish to live there represent the top 10 or 15% of Canadian income.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
Exactly, because they're expensive areas.
Yeah. But they're also critically have a cachet and a relationship to downtown office work.
Yeah.
Right? More people are going back to the office. We know this. The bank, particularly, where the money is in Canada, let's face it, the banks,
yes,
the big insurance companies, the big law firms, the big consulting firms, like the traditional group of people who have always been the top tier incomes in Ontario.
Yeah.
And now there just comes, if those sales have been not, I wouldn't say suppressed, but not as busy as normal. Obviously, when there's 20-year lows, they're not as busy as normal. But there's always a favored street. There's always a street in a favorite neighborhood that in the right school district, that if that house comes up, there's a bunch of people who are interested.
Absolutely.
Because they have the money.
Exactly. They're not constrained by what's going on in the market. But, again, I think these are just the outliers. You know what I mean? Like we've talked about, the market outside of that is actually insanely slow. Both for condos and for most houses. These areas are the few outliers. And I think it's just like this quirk. Like we just happened to start the year with an above average number of people looking in these areas. And the market's going to go back to normal.
Yeah, we have the same exposure to that too in our mortgage brokerage, is that some people will come to us and say, hey, you're always talking about not buying. Wait another 6 months, but like I have a very specific school district I want to live in it's in a very specific part of town. And I've been looking for a long time, well, not aggressively, but I've been thinking about it. And if I wanted, I think I can sell my house relatively easy because I'm in a sort of a similar area.
Yeah.
I just want a bigger home because my kids are getting bigger. I mean, it's that kind of a exactly precise story.
Correct. Yeah.
Not to those people, I say, well, just go buy it then. Okay. Yeah. Like there's the family income is like $900,000.
Yeah.
Like they're sophisticated people. They're making $900,000 a year.
Yeah. Puts
them in the top 1.5% of all income earners in Canada.
Exactly.
And if you want to buy that house, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. You have, by the way, they're going to put like, $1.5 million down. Okay. Exactly. Because their investments have done well. So what can I tell you? So for those people, sure, that exists. But to your point, condos are still preposterously dead, right?
Very slow, very slow. Condo market sluggish, very few viewings. No one cares, like it's so wild how like the sentiment and the mindset has shifted in 3 or 4 years, from this obsession with buying real estate, buying condos. Everyone's just like, I don't really. And it's funny because I remember when I was younger, I used to talk to my dad about, he'd tell me these stories about the housing market back in the 80s and the 90s, and I remember him telling me. 1990,
that's the time, 1990.
I remember him telling me like in the 90s, after the frenzy when the market had plummeted, he's like, it didn't, at that point, it didn't matter what people priced at. Like the sentiment was like, who cares? Like if I wait, it's just gonna be lower tomorrow. And that's like the sentiment on the ground with a lot of people. And that's why there's just not a lot of activity.
So now that we're in like year 3 of this like catastrophic dog crate condo crash in 416, like there's just so many horrible things have come to light. Like because when you and I look at the layouts of these places,
terrible, yeah,
and the facilities are terrible, and the garbage chute doesn't work. It's only a year old.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and there's some of these condos have floods on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
Okay, like there's just so because. I guess ultimately it's true. Like if a market is based on frenzy, maybe the builder doesn't do such a good job.
Exactly. They don't have to worry as much about it. People are just going to buy whatever off of floor plans, right? And listen, again, I wonder what the market is going to look like for those buildings in the future. You have buildings, tall buildings, where the average square footage size is like 600 square feet.
Or less.
The average. So these are all small units, which is probably, this building is almost always going to be an investor-owned building.
Pure tenants,
right? Because this person who wants a unit to live in is typically looking in a smaller building, larger layouts, 2 bedrooms, completely different types of property. So I wonder, like a lot of these, seriously 1 bedroom or studio buildings, they're probably gonna be the most vulnerable, I think, over the next couple of years.
Is ghettos of the future too cruel?
I worry about that. Maybe not, because people used to say that about City Place. And like, listen, City Place back, it doesn't feel like a ghetto right now. I mean,
no,
some of the buildings, they don't. They were worried
it's ghetto adjacent in some ways, but
right? So who knows?
And things do go wrong with the plumbing, and
of course,
and there's some issues. There are some issues.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I, who have looked at real estate, you're much younger than I am, so God bless. But you and I have looked at real estate for a long, long time. Actually, appreciate that if people are going to live there to live their lives, they think about. It's not just about price. It's not just about location. Location is important.
Yeah.
But it's also about who the fuck are my neighbors?
Exactly.
And does the elevator actually work adequately? Like because once you've had that 6 elevator, 2 of them are down permanently kind of a thing on
Correct.
a rotational basis, you start to get pretty fucking tired of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? And so the quality of the building does come through at a certain point.
It does. I mean, depending on who's buying. The mom and pop investor never cared. And it's really interesting because we're representing a landlord who has a purpose-built rental right across the street from our office, like 45 units. And when we first started leasing that building, when you walk through the building and you speak with the owners, they were obsessive about the layout. They were taught, you could tell, like when you own the assets and you're a builder, you look at it differently. The mom and pop investor is just looking at making a quick gain, right? Whereas if you're going to hold it for the long term, these people were obsessed about the layout, about the knobs on the stoves. Like, they were talking about things that they would do differently the next time. But
to improve.
But every layout was very considered. Whereas the micro investor, most of these people bought it thinking they're just going to make $200,000 in a few years, and they didn't really care.
It's such a great point. Like it is like it's not necessarily of interest to a lot of people, but it's a fantastic point. So when I sometimes talk to people who run REITs, okay, and they'll tell me, look, the seeds of destruction of mom and pop condo investors was 20 years ago. Okay, because the first few years they thought about, well, this is a decent looking unit, and then by the time we got to the end stage, okay, what's the fucking square footage price, and what can I get for rent? Do you think, or maybe I'll just flip it? So who cares? And these REITs said to the guys who run the REITs said, look, we obsess about something, how it's going to work 40 years from now.
Exactly.
We have to.
Yeah.
We're going to own this thing for a long, long time. We have to obsess about floor plan. We obsess about, how we don't want it to turn over that much. I mean, we have to worry about the quality of, because we're going to be replacing the stove. We're going to be replacing the fridge. It's going to be on us. Okay. We have to think about all these things. But to your point, when you just turn a transaction into a financial formula, but it's real estate, and somebody gives a shit where they live. Okay, and it's been a catastrophe, really.
It's been a disaster. I mean, this is why condo starts are going to go to zero in the next, few years, right? Because
absolute zero.
Yeah, zero, because it doesn't work anymore, because it was all built on like speculation. And it's not unique. When we look at what's going on in Toronto, this has happened in so many other housing cycles in Dubai, in the US, in Fee. It's not when it's all driven by spec and the market collapses, construction plummets. It's like a normal trend.
So we'll touch on the end of the condos, because you and I both know that there's about another 28,000 of them coming over the next 16, 18 months, and then it's gone. You will look up, and the only cranes in the air in Toronto will be office buildings, a couple of office buildings.
Yeah, some rentals, but
a couple of rentals, maybe. That's it. Okay. So we'll go from the most cranes to the least cranes in just a short 18 months. So once all that inventory is complete and we go through whatever bad things happen with that inventory, there won't be a new condo built again. Because there's no starts now. No sign of any starts this year. No pre-sales now. No I don't think there'll be any pre-sales next year. No. I mean, I'll actually make a bet on it. But is there a different approach you could take to building these units sometime in the distant future?
Yeah, I think builders are starting to pivot because they realize the investor market's dead. It's not coming back anytime soon. So they basically have to build units for end users, kind of like we used to decades ago. But the only way to really do that is, I think what they're going to have to do is, instead of building these 40-story towers, they're going to be building 15-story towers or 18 or 20. Because, I mean, the shorter the building is, less, it gets built faster. The end user can buy pre-construction now and wait 2 or 3 years. They're not going to wait 6 years. Right?
No, hell no.
No one's doing that. So we're probably going to see more builders do that, building end user type units if they want to see any sales. And a few launches that have happened recently are trying to target that market. And I think that's the only way we're going to start to see more condo sales, if builders start pivoting.
So we could see, and we're not talking next year or this year or maybe even, remember we were talking 29. We could see somebody say, okay, look, we got a generation of people who are going to be downsizing because people in my bracket, the boomers, we're either going to quit being able to look after ourselves and our houses, and we're going to have to downsize eventually. Okay. So if we could build something that a boomer would like, or a Gen X would like, and say you can take possession in 2.5 years, and it's a nice, it's all well appointed. It's going to be a great building, a legitimately great building, not a bullshit story great building, but a legitimately great building. And we'd still need to get the price down, wouldn't we?
Well, that's a big thing, because the reason why construction's plummeting is because the resale, you can buy a resale building for $1,000 a square foot. A builder cannot sell a pre-construction condo for $1,000 or $1,100 or $1,200 in the core. Exactly. Suburbs maybe. So they can't do that. So when your pre-construction product is 30% more than what's existing out there
in resale.
Resale, it's a very hard sell. So the price of the pre-con has to come down,
especially when there's a shit ton of resale available.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
So, we know this is going to happen. The thing is, the thing you and I laugh about is that we're dead sure that there's going to be some point 18 months from now when the premier and the mayor, whoever the hell will be the new mayor, and maybe even the prime minister will say, "What the fuck? There's no more construction in Ontario. How did that happen?" And we've been talking about it. We've been talking about it for 3 years already, and it'll be 2 years from now or 18 months from now. And we've been talking about it the whole time, but it takes that long.
It does.
For a politician has to actually wait until the explosion's over and it's just rubble. Okay. Look at that. Okay. Look what happened over there. So probably eventually something will have to, because you and I both know the two key things that affect cost, because you can't get the price of concrete to go down 50%. I mean, I don't know how you would.
Yeah.
But the two key things are land prices, which have dropped. They've dropped in all locations. Yeah. They're down. They're down maybe 50, 60% in some cases. Okay. But no one wants to buy them because you can't pick that time horizon to start building again. Exactly. So they just sit.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I got a couple of guys in that commercial sales area who there are some deals getting done. But again, they're from very rich organizations that could just say, well, we're going to leave it for 3 years.
Yeah.
We're just going to let it sit. We're going to do what we need to do. But the other thing has got to be development fees.
Exactly.
Because the city of Toronto has not backed off one dime.
Yeah.
Right. It's still.
I mean, and it's a bit nuts because they those fees supercharged during COVID, I'd say. Actually, it started under Tory.
He raised 1 year, he raised it 50%.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, and this was the city basically saying, "Oh, we've got a crazy housing market. Well, I want a piece of this.
Let's take a bite out of this ourselves."
Exactly. Yeah. And sure, increasing taxes when you have a lineup of investors willing to pay stupid prices,
pay whatever,
does not slow down supply. It didn't curb supply because the investors didn't care. They're just paying whatever they want, whatever the builder
What do you want
charging.
for it? I'll
exactly.
pay it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so fine. They got away with it. But now that the market has plummeted, they're not revisiting the numbers and saying, well, $150,000 in taxes for a condo might just be a little too much.
Which the builder pays in advance.
Yes, it's insane. Honestly, even if builders were able to get the land for free, they probably still couldn't be able to build a condo that pencils right now.
So true. I mean, it's funny. Oh, it is. I'll tell you one interesting story. There were two condominiums in Hamilton that finished. And for some reason, Hamilton decided to defer the development fees. There were big development fees, they were deferred. So the builder finished, closed the condo corp, paid somehow I can't even tell you why, but they were allowed to pay off their construction loan. And now the whole thing is in receivership based on we can't pay those deferred development fees.
Yes. We
have 6. How the hell they get 6 liens and still paid off the bank loan? I don't even understand it, but apparently it happened.
Wow.
Okay, so I guess that's a lesson to every municipality. Just plain lower the development fees. Don't defer them, or you still get nothing. Yeah. Okay, you'll get zero. Yeah. So, but we have to. But we're going to wait. I think you and I are in agreement. We're going to wait. Like politicians literally have to see something melt.
It's true.
Into a puddle.
It's painful. It's so painful to see the reaction. I mean, we saw this during the boom, when our population boom was surging to 1.3 million people. Everyone's like, I don't think it's not too bad. I think we can build enough homes. And then it's like,
it'll just help the economy.
I mean, yeah.
Dudes, the rents have gone up 30% in 2 years. Are you fucking crazy? It's ridiculous.
And it's so funny you say the rents, because if you look at the data, rentals.ca published these stats recently showing, I think it was the past 16 or 17 months.
17, yeah.
Yes. Rents are year over year plummeting across Canada on average. Okay?
Yeah, and worse here than anywhere.
Exactly.
But
we have not doubled or tripled housing completions. It's not because of this flood of supply. It's, population plummeted, and largely non-permanent residents, which is driving rents.
And they were the driver of
course,
rents.
Exactly.
Because they don't buy houses.
They don't buy houses. They don't have permanent.
They don't even,
exactly.
they have no way to do so. Yeah,
exactly.
That's right. So this is so obvious, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you could look at it if you're in the business. Of course, no politician. Politicians are lifetime politicians now. They never did anything besides politics.
It's true.
But if you're actually in a business, you can say, no, this isn't going to work. This is stupid, right? But they just keep coming.
Yeah.
So now we have zero population growth, and that has this big impact on rents, and it's just going to keep going down, in my opinion.
Probably, yeah. If population growth stays at this level, which probably will till next year. I mean, we don't know what it's going to be like beyond that, but yeah, with no growth, at the end of the day, again, Canada's zero growth, but you're still building 200,000 homes per year. It's obviously going to put down pressure on prices and rent, and we're starting to see that. So
you and I are of the same selfish motivation here, that you and I really just care about homes to buy for two reasons. It's our living.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, we're not financing. I'm not financing huge rental buildings. Okay, you're not. You're leasing one, so good for you. You're leasing a good like local rental building, but you're not really in the lease business. No. You're in the selling houses business. Yeah. Okay, so where's this going? This is an odd thing where it's going to hit the ground, because if we don't get back to building houses to buy, we're harming our whole society, right?
We are. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be terrible like 2 years out, because in a couple of years you're gonna have probably population growth going back to maybe more normal levels. Maybe 300 or 400,000 people per year. Yeah. You're gonna have virtually no low like family sized housing that can be purchased.
No single
family home like construction completions over the next 2 or 3 years. Nothing. So again, we're going to be in this period where demand's going to outpace supply, and I'm not saying the market's going to skyrocket, but you're going to be in this period where there's going to be pressure on prices, probably because people are going to want a family-sized home.
Yeah, I have to keep banging on this drum, because sometimes when I tell people, look, there's been effectively zero low-rise housing built in Southern Ontario, because I'm not going to worry about like 300 units built in some in Elmira. Okay, I'm not going to care about that. But there's effectively zero been built for 2 going on 3 years. There won't be any built next year. You and I both know that. There's no sign of anybody starting to build a low-rise subdivision anywhere. Yeah. So we could go 4 or 5 years with effectively zero. Like we talked about, 269 pre-construction sales in 1 month in the TREB system. Sorry, in the build system, build report for all of Southern Ontario. There's like 12 million people here. Okay, exactly. Like you can build how many? Like less than 300? That's ridiculous. Yeah, it's effectively zero. So when you have effectively zero builds for a long period of time, 4 or 5 years, 5.5 years, and I think that's where we will actually get there. Like there'll be virtually nothing till 29. Yeah. That's a lot of absent inventory, because young people used to buy starter homes. They couldn't. Yeah. Eventually, when we got to the end of when we hit 2019, 2020, they couldn't, because it was too expensive.
Exactly.
But they used to, like you and I remember, like that used to be a big chunk of how new subdivisions got started, is young families would buy. So now we've got a complete absence of that. You can only buy resale. If you want to buy, you can only buy resale, which eventually starts to pump the price up again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your combination of what you said, more immigration, not crazy immigration, but like 400, 350, what?
Yeah.
It's a guaranteed way to create new overly expensive prices again.
It is, absolutely. And I don't think it's going to, surge, but yes, you're gonna have the wealthiest households bidding up prices. For people who are trying to understand how people can afford it, it's like generational wealth. Like that's what's driving a lot of this stuff. Everyone who's buying, most first-time buyers, like the majority, are getting gifts from family.
Yep,
right.
That's right.
And that's how they're getting in. So you just have these households for bidding it up, and we'll probably see something like what we saw in the late 90s, early 2000s, it'll be like 5-6% growth maybe. But again, even that's still aggressive. You do that.
That's way more than inflation.
Exactly. You do that 4 or 5 years in a row.
Yep. So, and that's the horror of it all, because again, there'll be some politicians say, oh, you know what? In all of our programs, on all of our loser programs, the terrible housing accelerator fund that failed, the new Build Canada homes with Carney modular yurts, okay, that's going to fail, okay? They're all just rentals.
They are.
That's all they are.
That's all they're building.
There's nothing about giving young people a chance to buy a house. That is not in any of those programs. It doesn't exist.
It's pretty mind-blowing that from the feds, you don't really have that as a priority. And again, I think not that it should only being about owning homes, but certainly we want rental housing, but there's like zero any interest or plan to make owning a home or building more of those types of homes affordable.
None.
Nothing.
Totally nothing.
Nothing. And not from the feds or the provinces. Like no one cares. The city, every level of government's almost indifferent.
Every level of you would almost say that every level of government is maybe just a whisker on the other side of indifferent. Like we don't need it. Just build rentals.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see that.
It is, absolutely. And that's what they're building. They're basically going all in on these CMHC, low interest, rental mortgages. So that like all of the starts we've been seeing are almost all rental housing, basically.
All of it, yeah.
Almost all of it.
When you read about the CMHC saying, well, starts are down, but there's still 230,000 starts.
Yeah.
If we tried to look into that, parse those numbers and say, well, how many of them are houses to buy? Oh, about 80.
Yeah.
About 80,000.
It's true.
Well, this is a big country. There's 40 million people here. Like, how is this 80,000 a year to buy going to help anybody buy anything? I mean, it's so crazy. So this is what puzzles you and I sometimes, is that there is this lack of interest from government about young people buying homes. Mm-hmm. And yet, because you've sold a lot of homes in your day and talked to a lot of people, so do I, haven't sold homes, but I've got mortgages for people. We've reached a point where young people are more or less giving up on this thing, unless they have that generational wealth.
Exactly.
You've seen it.
100%. Definitely. They're either leaving Ontario, which is effectively they're giving up on buying here, and they're moving to Alberta, or they're moving to the East Coast, or they're moving to the US where they can buy a house.
Yep.
Or they're just giving up entirely. And the reality is, I think for a lot of households, a lot of people don't get, well, why don't they just rent? Well, Canada wasn't set up as a country where like raising your family long-term in a rental is a serious option. Like there just aren't that many 3-bedroom family-sized rentals. Most of the rentals we have are investor-owned homes in the suburbs, and people worry, like, I'm going to raise my family there, in 2 or 3 years, the landlord's going to say, well, I'm moving into it, or I'm going to sell it, they kick you out. So there's not a lot of long-term security, right? And this is why, we're not like Germany. This is why people will pay a premium for owning, even though the buy versus rent math sometimes doesn't make sense. Like you can rent for way less, but if you want to live here and you want to live in the suburbs, people just pay the premium because
you're so right. That's what stuff I've talked about. I've talked about the fact that, look, we can do this rent versus buy math till we're blue in the face, but that doesn't impact on people who say, well, I don't have to move my kids.
Exactly.
I don't have to move my kids every 5 years. I don't want that. I want to be like when I was raised, we were in the same house for 16 years, 17 years. I was able to go through the whole school system.
Yeah.
In the same home, knew the same kids, knew that, it was my life. I knew the neighborhood. And like a lot of people sort of put that down. Oh, well, that's just, those days are over. Just get used to it. Why the fuck should we get used to it? Mm-hmm. Like, so in other words, those generations could have it, but you can't.
Yeah.
Like, where's the fairness of that?
No,
right?
It's completely unfair. Absolutely.
And look, I understand that there's other reasons why people, sometimes people just like to point just at the inability to own a home as a reason for falling fertility, falling internal population growth. People just don't have kids. There's a lot of other reasons. I accept that. That's not just the one reason for that. But it's an influence. Like at the end of the day, when we look at cities in the U.S. where houses are incredibly cheap, like if you look at Houston, that's a big city. It's a vibrant city. Humidity is off the fucking charts in the summer, but it's a vibrant city where it's easy to buy a house.
Yeah.
And you will see that there's more families. There are more couples having kids in those suburbs, far more so than we're experiencing here in Ontario.
Yeah.
And that's got to mean something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more affordable housing is, the more it does. There's definitely a correlation there because, a lot of people feel like, I don't want to have more kids. Maybe I have one, but they can't afford to have the second or third, right? Even if they want to. So
there's no comfort level to it.
No, there isn't. I mean, people are squeezed as it is financially. If you're getting a home, for most households, they're kind of stretching the budget to buy that home.
Yep.
Right? And when you do them, they move in. Many of them still have financial shock once they own it because they didn't budget for certain other expenses, and then adding 1 or 2 or 3 kids on top of it's even harder. So absolutely, I think it makes sense. But how are we going to get to this place where owning a home is more affordable in Toronto anytime soon? We're getting there. Prices are falling, but
still too high.
It's still too high. It's way too high still.
Too high, for sure. So unfortunately, that we don't have any government addressing these issues. Not any level, not city, not province, not federal. This is just, I guess you could say fairly, They've just given up on it.
They
It's
have.
too big a problem.
It is, yeah.
We can't fix it.
They think
Let's just build enough rentals so that we don't have riots in the streets, okay?
And there's a lot of finger pointing. I think every level of government points at every other level of government, Like 3-4 years ago, the feds were pointing their fingers at the city, saying it's their fault. They're just not allowing more supply. And other levels are pointing at the feds. Like,
Well, when the feds let in 1.3 million people a year for 2.5 years, you could probably point a real big finger at the feds.
but that
right?
was the funniest part.
Yeah.
They were actually blaming the cities when that was happening, right? Anyways,
Lord.
it's mind blowing.
the thing that we can see happening now in Southern Ontario, City of Toronto, Metro Toronto, GTA is you and I don't believe there's going to be an uptick in prices, do we? Not
No.
this year, maybe not even next year,
Probably, yeah.
and maybe more price reduction this year.
Yeah, I think
But
so.
I think you and I both suspect that sales are going to get off the mat in resale.
Yeah.
Like in a very low key way.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I think that makes sense. I mean, again, I said this last year, how can we get much lower? But sales in 2025 were actually lower than 2024. But, you're only going to stay at this level for so long. And yes, we'll probably see a slight increase. The question is going to be, at what point are we at a market where prices are flat? Because even if we increase, if we go from 60 to 70,000 home sales, it's probably still going to be a slow market, like downward pressure on prices, right? So we still have another, who knows how long before we even plateau, kind of hit that bottom that everyone's trying to time.
So that's, by the way, thank you for saying that, because we are now experiencing on TikTok and Instagram many, many real estate agents who are assuring us that the bottom is in and
gosh.
prices are going to soar.
I don't know how they say that. I mean, I have no idea where prices are going, but I certainly would not make that call. Like it doesn't, there's nothing that signals that, I like looking at the information, and the information is not just the data, the charts, because that's almost like stuff that has happened. It's also what's happening on the ground. Like we see this, how many people are calling, how much interest is there, how much is demand picking up, and it's not there yet.
Yeah, the thing we have to accept is there are no real estate investors.
No, there's no,
They are
exactly.
absent. They don't exist. They might exist as a corporate group who's buying some unused inventory from a newly completed condominium building. Okay,
that's happening.
But there's no individual investor who's coming in and saying, "Damn, I think I can really make money on these condos now." I mean, like that does not exist.
No,
there's nobody who's planning on buying a bungalow in Scarborough and renovating it and flipping it. This does not exist.
It does not exist. Yeah.
That was a big part of the market.
It was.
And it's gone, and it ain't coming back soon. So that leaves us with first-time buyers who are a little gun shy because prices are still too expensive.
Exactly.
And for move-up buyers, it's got to be that situation that you talked about.
Yeah.
Again, people with money looking at precisely the house they want.
They are. And the move-up buyers, I feel, are a challenge because if they're in a good neighborhood, fine. They don't have to worry about it. Maybe they can buy first and sell if they know their home's going to be competitive. But that's like 5% or 10% of the market. In 90% of the areas, the problem that the move-up buyer has is they're worried their home's not going to sell or not going to get the price they want. And most people in Toronto are not used to selling their existing home first and then buying.
No, they're not.
Which is what you have to do today.
That's right.
Like in 90% of the areas. Yeah. Like it's almost irrational not to. But people struggle with that. And like they're sitting on the sidelines, don't know what to do. They kind of need to upsize. They just had another kid, but they don't want to sell their home because they don't know where they're moving to.
No, all true. And that is why I think the right prediction to make is that prices keep falling and we just may see a marginal uptick in sales activity.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's most likely for this year.
John, thank you. It's always great to have you on the show. The stuff you say is always smart. I will continue to remember for a long time the John Pasalis in May of 2022 thinking, fuck this, I'm cutting expenses. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Ron.
Take care.
If you like the pod, well, don't just sit there. Go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other ones and like the pod. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep being angry at mortgages and swearing about mortgages. Angry Mortgage could use your support.